For one, I want you to know that because there was not public comment at the beginning of the meeting, I was not allowed to say that this recording was going on, but I want to know now, does anybody not want this recording going? But during the meeting, what was the other one? You did not also ask if there was any recordings going. So those are the two things. So everybody right now knows that there's a recording going on, correct? Correct? Okay.
So what I'd like to kind of do is back up to October, November, right before this was passed, and then on October 31st when we as a committee sat and listened, as well as talked about what we needed in policy, and we made some changes. We went from equal protection of all transgender students and non-conforming students to gender identity. We took out the LGBTQ and added transgender and non-conforming students. We had some sample policy language that was given to us from members of our community, and I think everyone realized, my opinion on this whole thing is we have to take care of all students. I think that that's something that, Sarah, you've said to me multiple times. We got to take care of all students. So, I mean,
this policy says we're going to protect all students and we're going to follow the law. This is what this policy says.
It doesn't say we're going to protect all students. It says we're going to protect a certain group of students. So, and I think it should be where we're going to protect all students, regardless of where they are. So I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think that if there are people who are not protected, they should fall under a policy, and everyone should be protected. And I don't think that everyone is being protected. I think there are people or kids that can fall through the cracks. We need to help our students. And then in the, what is the second paragraph and third paragraph, and as I brought up at that meeting, there is no and or. It's and. Parent, student, and parent / guardian, as appropriate, need to notify the district administration of the fact that they want to assert a gender identity. At other districts in our area who have transgender students in their school, it is parent, kid, come in, form, fill out, discuss, put a plan in action. And that's how we are doing it. However, and or, someone could say no. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are regarding this.
Well, I don't know. So, for me, we just voted on this. So I don't really see any reason to touch any of the language.
Other than we definitely got to do the and or.
I don't see any reason to do the and or.
Okay.
The and or it's common in policy. It protects students who we prevent ourselves from trying to take away the rights of an 18-year-old or an emancipated student, or students who face a circumstance that we aren't aware of. So, the board just voted 6-1 on this with and or in it, and I don't see any reason to go back.
So then why are we even talking about it?
Well, because there's recall language up regarding the issue of Elliot Larson. So one possible solution is just to remove Elliot Larson.
And we have now 1, 2, 3 board members, because one of them put a letter to me saying that they want the and or out, and possibly 4, which would change the and or. Again, bring it up for discussion, and that's where we kind of got here. Is we brought this policy to the board for everybody to discuss, and there wasn't a whole lot of discussion, and then there was a lot of discussion, and then even at the day that it passed, it was 3-3 to basically be tabled. Okay, because the question and or, and we were questioning the legal references. Okay, now we're bringing the legal references, and it's the and or, one of the same people who has supported, who was one of the board members for recall, who voted to table has said and an or. We had an opportunity to bring this thing back and fix it and make it the way it should have been.
Well, again, I believe it is the way it should be. I even like the Ellie Larson reference.
Huh?
I'm even comfortable with the Ellie Larson reference.
Then why are we even talking about it?
Well, because they're the policy is under attack for the Ellie Larson reference, and if we can make it easy, but by removing that, then that's an easy solution.
Well, I think that the and or needs to go. And the reason the and or needs to go is because you're 18 years old, you're an adult. Doesn't apply. You're emancipated, doesn't apply. Because there's no, that you can come in without a parent or guardian. And I've discussed it with superintendents, past superintendents, and others who said, doesn't apply.
I'm comfortable with the policy as is. I'm comfortable. Again, I don't care too much about the legal references. I'm comfortable if you want to amend those. I think keeping Title IX would be important. Or I'm comfortable if you just want to bring it up as a discussion item. I don't know, Sarah, what you're thinking. I mean, to me, we just passed this, and I wouldn't mind moving on from it.
I thought that's where we were. It was going to just be moved on, but
You haven't gotten any feedback
About?
from board members?
Well, no, just about the Ellie Larson stuff.
Yeah. I haven't either. But I'm not the chair, so,
I've just heard from the 4 who are being recalled wanting that removed, and 1 wanting and and or removed, where it just says and.
I'm comfortable with the language that is in 811 currently as it is written. I'm open to looking at the legal references, but I'm comfortable with where they're at too.
So if you want to bring it up for discussion in a meeting, we can, but then we're going to have a 4-hour meeting.
All right.
I mean,
Yeah, I didn't know you wanted to discuss the whole policy. I'm totally comfortable with the policy as is. So if you want to rehash the whole policy, I'd rather just keep it off the agenda. But I'm not going to prevent that.
But you said at the very, when you started your comment, that this was brought up because students brought it to our attention, and so did administrators.
Right.
Because administrators says, we don't know.
how to handle things.
Yes.
Yep.
We don't have a policy in place to support these students.
Right.
So that's where this policy started to have conversation.
Correct. And then we put a policy in place that we heard a lot of comments and a lot of student comments and a petition of a lot of students saying they didn't want this policy.
It wasn't this policy.
It was
It wasn't
they didn't want
anything
a
close
policy.
to. It was not close to this policy.
Well, Greg, we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
The policy that was circulated wasn't. We didn't have this yet.
Well,
That was the 6-page policy.
I understand that, but there's still a lot of people who don't want this policy.
Well, I agree. I'm not disputing
Yeah,
that.
and I think there's a lot of students who don't want this policy as well. I mean, we're just saying we're going to take care of one specific segment of students. There isn't a, as an administrator in another district said to me, you put a policy that takes care of one group. What about the next group? What about the next group? What about the next group? And that,
Well,
was,
the
and
problem-
that was brought up. That was brought up amongst other board members at other boards
The
in
problem
this
with that,
ISD.
without this policy in place,
Mhm.
none of that changes.
I agree.
So I'm still not.
So all,
So again,
all-
so back to this.
So all we've done, okay, is create a lot of angst for something that wasn't going to make a difference. from how we were going to do things anyways. It doesn't make a difference of how Hazlitt, Okemos,
so that litigation
East Lansing.
doesn't fall on you.
No, it doesn't. There can still be litigation.
There can be, but what I'm saying is implementing something without a policy opens the door to have litigation filed against you for having a non-written policy in place without having a policy, essentially. Sorry, my words are getting mixed up.
So here's where my disagreement is with both of you, and it's going to probably stay this way, okay? Is that if legal bodies who make recommendations to school districts, Neola, MASB, don't have specific language to give to districts when policies are being read, all we did is we created something that we felt needed to fit. Major organizations that do this and that most districts fall under have not done this. We did this as a board. We did this. So we as a board ticked off this community, a lot of people in this community, more than you think.
I'm
Okay.
fully aware.
All right, so with that said, we don't have, that we know of, student who applies to this policy right now. Now we could, yet there are multiple districts that neighbor us who do have students and they don't have policy. And it doesn't change how they're doing business, and it doesn't change the way we're doing business right now. As I said earlier, a lot of this language, because it's a message, because it's not even a policy, it's in policy, but it is a message. We're going to accept transgender students, gender identity students, sexual orientation, you name it. We're going to accept those students. I totally agree. Easily could have been in a handbook, because handbook is policy, because we as a board vote for handbook items. And wouldn't change anything. The same language could have been there. But because it's quote unquote a policy, it's caused a lot of angst. And it's going to continue to cause a lot of angst. And honestly, I don't want to sit through another 4-hour meeting, because bringing it up at all is going to cause another 4-hour meeting. And I don't know that my health can handle it, honestly. It's not good for anybody. I think the policy should have been tabled. I made that perfectly clear. This thing could have been a handbook item, that's where it is. And now, I mean, 4 years dealing with a lot of stuff. And possibly I could have been too if it wasn't up for election this year. So, I don't think that it's something that, not something I think that we need. Most people read this thing and say, it's really nothing, which I'm not disagreeing. This thing is barely anything. But just making a change here or there, still, I mean, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation are now in 3 or 4 other policies that deal with kids. And this is just added stuff. Because all those things would take place based on other policies that we already have in place would have taken care of the other parts of this. So, if you guys want to bring it up for discussion, I'm not going to say not to, but I'm just saying this, put on an agenda, it's going to take discussion, and there's going to be a lot of comments that are going to be the same comments as we heard before. And we're going to have 80–90% of the people say they don't want this policy, want it gone. It's up for discussion, so they're going to want to tell us that. We all know the message. And it was voted on, passed, and I mean, it's done. I mean, I guess.
So today just kind of solidified for me a little bit more why this recall needs to go through. The fact that you would bring to a board to remove Elliot Larson when you want it to be there to begin with, but you would remove it just to save your butt, shows me volumes that it's only you're serving your own self-interest and your own political interest, whatever that political interest might be. Because we want people that are here that are going to stand up for something, and if you want a policy like this, we want you to stand behind it, not try to strip it down after the fact to save your butt. So you weren't protecting kids. You were protecting your self-interest, and it proves by wanting to remove Elliot Larson. And even after saying, I don't mind it being there, but because of the recall, if we want to take it up so we can remove it. That's just complete and utter lack of integrity, and that's why we want to remove you from the board.